to talk through migrations with CockroachDB and a new tool that we actually just released about a month ago. So before we dive in, we'll do a little round of intros here. So my name's Megan. I'm in the product marketing team here at Cockroach. I've been in the company for almost 3.5 years at this point. So experienced a lot of growth, a lot of changes, and I'm excited to be talking about this new migration tool. And I'm joined by Andy. You want to give an intro, Andy?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy. I am on the product management team at Cockroach Labs. I have been here, actually, I just hit my 5-year anniversary about
amazing.
a month. So it's been an amazing journey to watch us grow from a cool piece of technology into a great product and great company. And so we're really excited to talk to you all today to share more about what we've been up to and what we're going, and talk about how we can help you with your own problems in this space. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, for sure. And then just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So we welcome all your questions. Please feel free to ask them in the Q&A section of your screen. So we'll be answering questions throughout the session if anything comes up. And then we do have, I just learned, we do have a little giveaway that we will be doing. So the 5 best questions we'll raffle off a free definitive guide to CockroachDB. So we just published our CockroachDB O'Reilly book this spring, which is a great manual to using CockroachDB. So we'll be handing out 5 free books to people who ask questions. So with that, let's jump in. So we're here today to talk about migrations. And I thought it would be apropos to start out with the metaphor of moving, since I think that's something that everyone here has probably been through multiple times. I actually just went through a move myself. So no one really moves for the fun of it or because it's easy or because it's fast. In fact, I think we all know that moving is a really unpleasant experience. I live in New York City, and I used to live in a 4th floor walk-up, and I just moved to a 4th floor walk-up in August when it was about 95 degrees. So that was not a fun experience, but we moved because the end result, or the place we're moving to, typically is worth the journey. Worth the struggle. So my new apartment has a lot of sunlight. There's a washer dryer in unit, which Andy can tell you is a very big asset in these New York City apartments. So it was definitely worth it, even though it was quite a journey. And similarly with migrations, I think we can all say that database migrations are generally not fun. There's a lot of work, tremendous amount of work, and oftentimes pain and emotions that go into database migrations. But we do it because we think that the end result, the new database, is going to provide enough value for your applications and for your teams that it's worth it. So when we think about CockroachDB, I think everyone on this call is probably relatively familiar with CockroachDB, but we do see that it has very, very critical values for the customers that are using it today, and concrete reasons why people decide to go through a migration and choose CockroachDB. And we often see very similar themes and issues that our customers are dealing with that make them choose to migrate. So Andy, I know you have worked with a lot of our customers who have migrated. I mean, your team is the one who built our migration tool, so you're very familiar with this. Could you just give us some background on some of the common themes you've seen, that the pain points that CockroachDB is solving for these customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, some of the themes that we think about a lot here are scale, resilience, and data placement. We talk about here with these keywords on the background, and, a lot of our customers are, they have production workloads, they have successful applications, and then with those successes comes new challenges, right? So, they want their customer base to continue to grow, but in order to do that, their infrastructure needs to keep up with it. So, one example that we have written about and talked about before is this company Stake. They are a New York Stock Exchange trading platform based in Australia. They are kind of formed around the idea of democratizing access to, to financial opportunities, and they were doing pretty well. And then I think if everybody remembers the GameStop short squeeze that sort of dominated the internet last year, their platform took off during that time period. So many people were excited about the idea of engaging with the stock market in a way that they'd never been able to approach it before previously. And so, Stake is sort of going along, and all of a sudden they have huge amounts of traffic coming through, right? And so, they'd started their business like many people do with RDS on Amazon, and had set things up, and then all of a sudden they'd hit product market fit. They were getting success, but they couldn't keep up with their infrastructure. And so they were working all night and weekends trying to refactor their code, trying to make things better. And so they realized that they just needed a database that could scale better, right? And so they were one who made the move over to Cockroach for our scale capabilities here. Another example in this space is a company called Kami. Kami is a digital classroom application, and they had really similar challenges here, right? Their digital classroom application, I think it was founded in the 2012, early 2010 time period. And so they sort of steadily grew and now they're the number one digital classroom application out there, right? And so Postgres was a great choice for them when they were getting started. Postgres is a powerful database. It has a lot of great capabilities, right? But they started to hit these scale limits around it, right? And so they came to us to help them go beyond this, right? To help them tackle the next level of challenges here in this space. And so I think we have plenty of other examples, named customers and not that fall in that scale category, but that's one reason that we would expect you to have heard about Cockroach and be thinking about Cockroach. We have plenty of examples of helping customers successfully make that transition across.
Yeah, for sure. I like the Kami example a lot because I think if I recall correctly, they were an online learning platform before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and everyone needs online learning platforms, and they needed a new solution. But yeah, regardless of the reason, there are compelling reasons that our customers see to migrate. And we have, over the past, 7 years at this point, is how long Cockroach has been around. We have been helping customers migrate, but in the recent years, we saw a need to make the process easier and more seamless and provide more out of the box tooling so that teams could migrate more easily and without as much custom work from our team as well, in terms of our customer success team. So we have built and released this new tool, this new capability called CockroachDB MOLT. MOLT stands for Migrate Off Legacy Technology, and it is also a word that describes the process of new growth in a cockroach. So please don't Google that, because it's the image might be kind of gross, but it's what we live with our name. So MOLT has two components. I inspired
everybody to actually do that image search.
I shouldn't have said don't do it, because now you're going to go do it. But MOLT has two components that really help with distinct parts of the migration journey. The schema conversion tool, which is brand new, built into our UI, and then support for AWS DMS. So Andy, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about these two components, what they entail, the values they provide, and then we'll jump into a demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So to return back to your moving analogy, these are the moving trucks, the dollies, the support that helps make it easy to come down from those 4 floors of walk-ups and come up the next 4 floors, right? So that's the idea here. The schema conversion tool is all about both organizing your schema to work in Cockroach, but also to work well, right? So we want you to get good experiences. And so we provide suggestions and recommendations as a part of this process to help show you how to make your workload better or more successful with Cockroach. On the on the right side of this slide, you can see that that's that purple box around migrate schema. That's kind of the first place to start. And then as you continue down the migration journey, we're continuing to tackle these capabilities here, right? So, DMS helps you, load data and transfer it and make it around in this process. And so, we're going to continue to invest in this space. This is not the end of our investment in migrations, and we'll talk more about that at the end. But I do just want to let everyone know that we're committed to making this process easier for you and to make it so that you can seamlessly realize the benefits of Cockroach, and it's not too big a hassle along the way here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think showing is definitely worth 1,000 words or whatever the phrase is. So let's jump over into the demo of the schema conversion tool. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so you can take over.
Cool.
Here we go.
So I am going to walk everybody through a demo of using the schema conversion tool. And so let me go ahead and share the screen. All right. All right, so we are looking at the CockroachDB managed service platform, and we're in the very beginning of the process of creating a cluster here. So let's go ahead and do that. Cockroach offers serverless or dedicated options here. Serverless is our newest product here. It's about elastic scaling up and down. The tool works with both products. I'm going to choose serverless today just to show you how easy it is to get started here. There's plenty of options here, like choosing your cloud provider, your regions, things along these lines. For now, we're going to skip the how to start a cluster and how to go through it and just jump straight into the tool itself. So nothing's been set up ahead of time here. We're creating the cluster like on the fly as we go right now. And you can see just how fast that is. The first thing that happens when they pop up is they want to give you a SQL user so you can interact and engage with the cluster. So we're going to generate and save the password here. You can get it later. There's hashing and other things involved in this. Then as we continue through the modal, this shows us how to connect to the cluster, right? So do we want a general connection string? Do we want a CLI or client or other things along these lines? It shows us how to copy and insert the certs in the process here. But in the interest of driving straight into the migration, again, I'm gonna blitz past this part, but these are all things to make it sort of easy for you to get things set up and get started, right? So we are gonna jump over here into this migrations tab down here. And what you'll see here is this just takes us straight to the schema conversion tool. The schema conversion tool right now is all about using Postgres schemas to bring to Cockroach. And so you start with a Postgres dump, or you can take a .SQL file that you have that has your schema in it and drag and drop or upload it here. So I'm going to upload one I've prepared ahead of time, this migrate.sql file. As you can see, what happens here is this takes you through a guided process, right? So we're bringing the file in, we're actually setting up, or we have the cluster already set up, and we're running that schema against a live cluster, a live database to see what's going on and how it works and what's going on here. And we have this nice experience to kind of keep you animated and involved while they're going through that process. Of course, like, the larger your schema is, the more time that will take, but it creates this sort of nice landing page where you can see a summary report of what's going on with your schema. And so we can see right here that we have 156 statements from here. We had 41 errors. There's some intel about what kind of errors are here, XML types, extensions. We have a missing user. And then we have some suggestions around sequencing or missing primary key or things like this, right? And so we give you a idea of how to expect how complex it is to address any of the limitations that are in place here. And for those of you who might want to see this in a more visual fashion, that's what we have here on the right. So it's the same information, but just in a bar chart form, right? So you can see that the vast majority of statements just work. We have a couple unimplemented features, a couple things that are related to a missing user, and then suggestions as we go through. So this is kind of your starting place. What we are aiming to do with this is to kind of help you get a good understanding of, is this a good fit right off the bat, right? We want you to easily be able to assess what's going on and check out what's happening. But because we want to actually make progress, we want to actually migrate through, let's go ahead and jump right into viewing the statements and seeing what's going on here. So we do let you kind of go statement by statement and see what's happening all the way down. But because the vast majority of these statements are actually successful, I'm going to go ahead and collapse them so that we can see straight into the things that we need to address and work through here. So the first one is a recommendation. This is a suggestion. We have a slightly different default integer size. For many people, this won't matter at all, and you can just go ahead and click acknowledge here to know that this is different. There's a few people who maybe their application is taking advantage of this in some form or fashion, and then you might want to make an adjustment here of setting it. But for now, I'm just going to acknowledge it because I think for most people, it won't be too big a deal. The first thing that we're going to do is we could see that we've made a user A Woods, and that user is not available to the cluster. We don't know this exists, and so we can't do a lot of the things that we need to do, like assigning ownership, to A Woods without the user itself to exist. So you could type this in directly into the shell, like we offer this like nice ability to edit into the SQL directly. You could delete the statement or add a statement above or below it, but we actually have built some functionality to make it easier to add a user as you go. And so I'm going to click that functionality. It populates it with the same name that was in here because, of course, that's the user we want to get. And then it will generate and save a password for us. And just like before, when we had a SQL user to get started, this now makes this A Woods a SQL user that's available here in the process. One thing that I should explain is that as we're going through and addressing the challenges here, we're queuing these all up. So at the very end, we'll rerun the migration once these changes are in place to show how we made progress. But as we do each thing, we have a checklist that we're kind of going through. We got to finish the checklist before we can kind of go back and see exactly what happens here. So this is another suggestion. So you don't have to make this change, but as opposed to the user change that we needed to make in order to make things work. But it's a good thing for you to understand that, while Cockroach is Postgres compatible, the way we're designed as a distributed database is a little bit different. And some of those choices of distributed database mean that you might want to make different choices in your table design. And we have really good docs about what that is, how to think about it. We have links to the docs here that you can follow and go through. For now, I'm just going to say, let's acknowledge this one and keep going to some of the more interesting ones in here. But this is a way in which we're starting to help you know where to be spending your time rather than sort of just kind of going through and expecting to see what happens here. So because I've already addressed the user A Woods, it's resolved in here. And so I'm going to skip down to the next set of problems. So Cockroach is Postgres compatible, as we've talked about, but it's designed a little bit differently than Postgres, and that we don't support extensions. And so there's an extension called pgstat statements, which is used by people to understand their workload, understand what's going on with the statistics. And in order to make that work in Postgres, you have to add this extension. You have to set up this tool. We thought this was so important that we actually built it into our binary directly. And so we have a DB console or a CC console that provides this information for you off the bat. So not only do we not need extensions overall, but we don't need this particular extension. So I'm going to use this opportunity to go ahead and delete this statement from the schema. I'm going to continue on with acknowledge, and then we will keep going down this scrolling here. So this is an example of something where we might actually want to be able to make an adjustment in terms of how things work. So Cockroach doesn't support XML as a unstructured format, but we do support JSON. And so many times it's appropriate to just go ahead and replace the XML with JSON. So I just clicked right in here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this and put in JSON. And then I'll save it over here. I could have done the edit button first, but we let you kind of click right in here. And now we're at the end of the file. So we've kind of gone through everything. So now it's time for us to rerun the migration to see if we've addressed all the problems to be ready to go. So we have this nifty scroll to the top button you saw, which took us up here. We can't finalize the schema because we think there's still sort of some things to address, but we can retry the migration. So that's what we're going to do now. This will take a second to run because it's updating what's happening. It's rerunning this against the cluster. And so, we're sort of revalidating the schema and going through this process. We talked earlier, Megan, about some of the scale reasons why someone might want to come over to Cockroach. Another reason someone might want to come over is for high availability or fault tolerance, right? So there are customers who are looking at their infrastructure and saying, I can't really tolerate my database going down because it'll hit my mission critical infrastructure, right? And so, Launch Darkly is a customer that fits this profile. They really care a lot about how these things are set up. They're a feature flagging and management platform here. And so there's a really nice story about how they were thinking about these challenges, looking for an opportunity, and kind of went through Cockroach in this capacity. All right, well, so the good news is that we have successfully addressed all of the errors, right? We're now at the 0 error stage here. There are some more suggestions that we could come back to and deal with, but I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over those and show the sort of finalizing the schema process here. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let's click this finalize schema. So the first thing is it's going to run and make sure you can have no errors and there's no extra steps that we need to do. And then the second thing is it's going to actually create the live schema now. So we have really two choices at this point. If we wanted to, we could download the SQL. It'll be a new file name that shows us all the new SQL that we put in place. So all the create table statements, sequencing, the owners, all these kinds of things. Or because we've already hooked this up to a database, we've been running against Cockroach serverless the entire time, we can actually just go ahead and make the new database. So I'm going to call this new database webinar in honor of our time here, and hit finalize. And that will then kind of put the schema directly against the database. It's sort of preparing the database in the process. The migration is being finalized. And at the end of this process, we will have a database that's live with our updated schema, and we'll be ready to, you see this nice confetti, which is one of my favorite little features here. We'll be ready to go, right? So we could follow this link right here, which would take us to the database, or we could learn more about migrating data, right? So this is a good opportunity about how we've woven things into using our documentation. It takes us straight to how to test, how to go through. It talks about how to use things like copy and import, and even AWS DMS that we're not going to go through today in terms of that. If you want to just see that we're in a live database here, we can follow this link and we'll see that, that we have the webinar database that I made here. We have the tables with the columns and the indexes all set up. And so we've now completed a successful migration. So I think that took me about 10 minutes end to end to explain to you while I was doing it and what it was going through. And that's what the schema conversion tool does as a part of MOLT. That's how easy it is for you to get in and get started engaging with the tool directly. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my scene and bring it back, but I do want to leave you with another point, which is that we want to make this self-service. We want to make this as easy as possible for anybody to kind of go through and do this, but we also have your back in this process, right? So we have a really strong customer success team that can help you go through these problems and help you address anything, talk you through trade-offs. We have a really strong sales engineering team that can go through this as well. We're here to make you successful, right? And so I'm really excited about these tools. I'm really excited about the future of where they're going. And I hope that they'll be useful to everybody here.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Good demo. And I love the live demo. You're always like, what? Is something going to go? Is something not going to work? Or it worked well. It was great. And in 10 minutes, it's so helpful. So thank you to that for that demo, and also to your team for building out the capability. It looks like we do have a question did come into chat. Please ask your questions in Q&A. But the question in chat was about whether you can use this schema conversion tool for self-managed or self-hosted clusters as well as dedicated and serverless. So do you want to address that?
Yeah, so the schema conversion tool is built into Cockroach Cloud. So you can use it with serverless or with dedicated, but not with self-hosted, at least at this point in time. The AWS DMS tool that does the data live migration can be used with any of them. So it can be used with serverless or dedicated or self-hosted.
Yeah.
I see some other questions in here. Is there a minimum PostgreSQL version needed for this to work? And I'll ask, I don't believe so. I think that most will work here. The way this works is it just requires that dump of your Postgres schema and going through the process. Obviously, changes to schema and schema functionality have adjusted, and Cockroach has its own compatibility journey in this process here. So I don't think you'll have any issues running through the tool, but let us know as you test through it if there's any concerns there. I also see some questions about what other databases or will we support with the schema conversion tool. So right now today in the live version that I just went through that's available online, it's just Postgres. We are right now exploring other database offerings. And so I think it's likely that we will add other database languages here in the near future. So if you have ones that you want to advocate for, I see SQL Server in the chat, Oracle, MySQL, things like that. Let us know. Tell us in the chat, tell us here otherwise. We will take that feedback into consideration. We definitely intend for this tool to cover a wide array of important databases to make it easy for our customers, because we really do have customers coming from every major database to Cockroach now in this capacity. Patrick asked an interesting question, which is, do you have a link to a list of the known compatibility issues so you can condition your schema import in advance? The goal of this tool is for you to not actually have to do that. Like you can use the tool to address things as you go. We do have good documentation on the things that we have not yet implemented in the Postgres ecosystem. I will say for everything that we have implemented, it's really important to us that it is compatible with Postgres. So, as we have implemented CTEs, we have compatible CTEs with Postgres, right? And so we have a wide variety of tests that kind of make that in place. So it's more about us catching up to the 20 years plus of Postgres development in terms of the remaining features, but you shouldn't have to do that ahead of time. That's what the tool should help you with. If you do want to, though, of course, that's available in our documentation.
Yep.
Let's see, other questions in the chat here. So it's important to know that the schema conversion tool is just the schema, not the data. So there was a question about backing up and restoring the data. We do keep the schema you started with in a file, and we do keep the schema we finished with. So you can definitely take those both available. And then within AWS DMS, like it does both a live migration as well as an ongoing migration. So you can kind of use backup and restore other things in that capacity as well.
Andy, I think that's an interesting point. This actually came up with a customer who was talking to us who was self-managed. If they wanted to, they could probably, create a free account, use the tool, and then get the schema out of there and then load it into their self-managed cluster, right?
Yeah, totally. And particularly I'd recommend using serverless for that, because with serverless, you only pay for what you use. So you can set up serverless, it'll follow in the free accounts to go through the tool on this process. And then if you are not ready to be in the cloud yet, or you prefer to be in a self-hosted environment, you can bring that schema to your self-hosted cluster at that point.
Yeah.
That file that comes at the end.
Yeah. So that's a solution for self-managed customers or self-hosted customers to use the tool.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're just about out of time here. Obviously, there's been a bunch of good questions and probably more questions than we can answer. But I really do want to encourage you to reach out to us. If you want to know how this works, if you want to go through a demo with your own schemas, if you want to engage with our customer success and sales engineering teams, we are here to help you and make you successful. So definitely follow up with us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always available, always willing to chat. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for all the great questions, and cheers.